Hi, this is Lady Lex UK and this is a Dreams Gadget tutorial. Right, as you know, some of the gadgets in the Dreamiverse have changed since early access to launch. So a lot of the tutorials that you may see on YouTube and other places may be affected by these changes. And the doorway gadget, which is the one we're looking at today, which is in gameplay gear, is one of the ones that is affected quite a bit actually by the changes. This has changed quite a lot since early access, and the way it works is different, the way you use it is different, there's extra bits to it. So I really need to redo this entire tutorial. Now, I have done tutorials on level linking, and those tutorials might appear to be very confusing because the gadget does not work the same way as it used to. I am going to be redoing those tutorials, but obviously they're quite long and involved and they're going to take a while to do. So bear with me while I redo those tutorials. But here is a guide to what has gone on with the doorway gadget, how it works and what the tweak menus show you. I do apologise if you can hear any banging and clanging in the background. I think my neighbour is having some building work done and there's some builders doing some bricklaying or something and bashing bricks together. God knows what they're doing. Right, okay, so the doorway gadget. First thing, good news. The doorway gadget thermo used to be 10%. When you put it down, it would say 10% gameplay thermo. Now it says 5% gameplay thermo. This is good news. That means you can put more doorways into your level. Now, bear in mind, of course, if you put 20 doors into your level, you've used up all your gameplay. This might be a little bit problematic for making anything else in it, so you're probably not going to want to put down the full 20, but who knows. If you're making a hub level, putting down lots and lots of doors is exactly what you want to do, and now you've got the option to put in a lot more. So you put in the doorways here like this. There's 4 doorways there, 20% gameplay memory. So it's a slightly artificial number, but they have got it down from the 10% down to 5%, so now we can have more doors. So that's all good news. Right, let's open it up and have a look what the changes are. Right, first page, not anything has changed here at all. This is exactly as it was before. You have a doorway type, so you can choose between an entrance, an exit, or a two-way door. As you can see, the default is for this doorway to be an exit door. Now, when you place this in your level and then activate it, power it up, this is going to cause your game to end, to finish, to complete and go back to the main menu. So with no level linking whatsoever, if you have a doorway activated in a game, it's just going to exit at this point. If you use an exit doorway with a link to another scene, then obviously it's going to continue the game and you're going to go through it that way. So that's what the doorways are. They're either entrances, exits, or two-way doors. And you'll notice that if you've chosen exit, this particular output wire is not active, and that is because as soon as you activate the doorway, you're level linked or you've closed the game. Either way, this wire and whatever it's attached to doesn't have a chance to actually activate and function. So there's absolutely no point in wiring anything from doorway activated if you're having an exit door. It does, however, work perfectly fine with the beginning. So if you've got an entrance, so you're coming through the door into the world, then obviously you can wire this to something that does something as soon as that happens. Right, let's look at the second page, and this is where all the changes really are. At the top we have wipe style. So think of this as the transition, if you're used to using words like transitions between scenes. Wipe is the best way to demonstrate the wipe is probably to use the linear wipe here. So if I hold down the X, you can see the effect. That green is passing across. That green is like green screen. It's It's putting a green screen in on top of your level, and then if your level linking to another scene, what we'll do, it will play the other scene underneath so you can see the wipe. So you're transitioning between one scene and another. It's really good. It's what people are used to if they're used to film editing software, seeing something similar to this. Now, the default for any wipe is to green screen between two scenes. If, however, you've got an exit and you're just finishing the game, having a green screen wipe means that you're not going to see anything, because there's no scene for it to see. It will just end. You'll just see a cut, if you like, between one scene and another. You won't see a wipe because there's nothing to see. So if you're using an exit to end game, then you need to click on transition via color. This is also what you'd use if you wanted to transition with like fade to black or something like that. So if I put it on dissolve, for example, there we go, that's a fade to black effect, and you need to have that on. In the previous gadget, that was a default thing that was always on, and we didn't have this button to turn it off. So we didn't have this extra green screen thing. So this is all very good. We've all got some extra functionality. It's all very nice. But it does mean that when you put a doorway in and you don't touch this, it looks as if your doorway isn't working. Now, the other thing that's different is in the previous doorway, if you were to test out your doorway, then it would end the game and you would get the save, don't save page. It doesn't do that anymore. Now it puts a little message at the bottom saying doorway activated. So you're not actually seeing the cut anymore. Don't worry, it is happening. It just doesn't want you to get in the position where you could accidentally lose the level and all the work that you've done by accidentally clicking on don't save at that point. So it's a sort of a safety thing, really. But it does mean that when you're in play mode and you're trying things out, you're not necessarily going to see what the player will see when they use the doorway. The other thing that is different is the circular wipe. Let's actually put it on transition to colour. It makes it easier to see. The circular wipe, there we go. It comes out from the centre, so it wipes a circle from the centre out. So filling the screen with black. Now, previously you had two buttons. One was for that effect and one was for the opposite. But now we have some reverse buttons. So if I press that one, now instead it's like a keyhole. It's going in. So it's fading to black by circling down like so. So we've got one button instead of two, so that's different. We've also got some new wipes. We've got a star, a heart, and a wibble. So the star here, the star gets smaller with that direction, and from this direction the star is black and fills the screen like so. There we go. So those are the new ones. The wibble, this is a special effect, makes the screen go wibbly wobbly, sort of like I've just remembered something. It goes wibble wobble. You don't have much control over that wibble wibble. It is fixed in terms of the speed of it. That is how it is. There isn't a slider to change the speed of the wibble, which is a little disappointing. It would have been nice if we had a little bit more control over that. You can change the fade out time and the fade in time depending on the doorway for it, but you can't change the speed of how fast that wibbly effect is. Right, so let's have a look at these buttons then. These are only for certain wipe effects. So if we use the linear one, let's turn these buttons off. The default linear is a left to right swipe. Sorry. If we do reverse, you get that. If you get this one, you get that. And if I move my Y position up like that, then we're wiping up to the top. If I put it down to the bottom, we're wiping down to the bottom like that. If I put it over to the left, we're wiping over to the left. We're wiping over to the right, and you can put it in the corners and have a diagonal wipe as well. To put it back into the center, you just hover over it and press triangle. Well, that's interesting. It's gone there and not in the middle. There. Right, okay. The softness of the wipe obviously is the edge. So if I put it back to 0, you can see that's a very harsh line, which might be suitable for your game. The default is 10%, which is a slightly softer line. And you could make it really soft if you want, so it wipes more like a fade rather than a wipe. So again, press triangle, you'll get back to your original. Now here is an interesting one. This is track object. I like to do this with a circular wipe, and I like to do it with a reverse fade in. So let's say we had an object in our level. We'll put it here. And we're going to have a circular wipe. I am going to track this object. So just like you have with the emitter, I'm going to select it, select that object. And now you'll see the circular wipe goes to the object that I want. So if we just do the fade out time a little bit slower, there we go, and it zooms in. That's the wrong way, that's the wrong direction. There we are. That's what I want. There we go. It zooms in like that. There we are. So that's a really interesting effect. So you can target a particular area of the screen for your wipe, and that's a really nice effect. And again, I see the wipe timing. That's how you change the speed of the wipes. All of these have got inputs and output sockets, so you can send that information out, and you can also send information in to change speeds, colours, etc. dynamically through the game. Right, on our third page, we have checkpoint mode and just spawned. Now, checkpoint mode is when your player comes into the level and they come through a door. The chances are you're going to have some sort of doorway. Let's there's our door. Let's just, there we go. So we have a doorway, and you don't have to have a physical doorway, by the way. When it says doorway, it is just a level linking or level ending tool. You don't actually physically need a door. Quite often though, doors are in play, let's just say. Right, so here's our puppet. Now if you've got the beginning of the level, you're going to have your puppet somewhere in the scene, but if you come through a doorway, then they're going to spawn they're going to go to the level link, and they're going to you can find an entrance doorway. So this could be our entrance doorway, and the player, when they come through the level, this is where they start, at the entrance doorway. But if I put my puppet elsewhere in the level to start with, and I had that off, that means if the player was to die, instead of respawning at the door, they're going to respawn here. So having that on means if they die and there's no other checkpoint activated, they are going to spawn there, at your entrance doorway. This just spawned. That is just a message to say I've just spawned at the doorway, and here is a wire that you can send out to say, okay, I've just spawned, do whatever. So you could have a sound effect or a visual effect, or you could set something off in the world on a microchip, anything you like. They just wire that to set things in motion, timelines, all sorts of things. Okay, so now that you've got your doorway, how do you use it as a level linking tool? Well, to do this, we need to come out of here and we need to create a dream. So now the screens are slightly different than before. You've got start fresh. You can do a new element, a new dream, or a new collection. So we want to make a new dream. This is where we're going to put all of our scenes and create a level linked full game. You click on it and this is what you get. It's a blank slate. You go into search and you find your scene. So you grab the scene that you want and you put it in your level. Now this particular scene I've got doesn't have any doorways in it, but you'll notice that a doorway has appeared. An entrance doorway has automatically appeared. That is because if you're making just a dream with one scene in, it doesn't have a problem. It just gives you an entrance in any scene that you place in here. It doesn't give you exits, but it does give you an entrance. So you don't need to put an entrance doorway in every single scene that you make. Especially if you're just making a dream of a single scene, it does it automatically for you, so you don't need to worry about that. The only time you would use an entrance doorway in this situation is if you had something special in the scene, such as a special effect or something, using some of the output sockets that we saw earlier, such as the just spawned or just activated on the door. So now we need to put in lots of scenes, so we're gonna have a search now. I have a game that has a lot of different scenes in it, all of them linked up together. It's called Who's Afraid of the Dark, and that's not going to work. So let me just start again. So we don't want a new dream. I'm just going to find my old dream that I made during the beta. Here we go. Who's Afraid of the Dark? Right. So if you do view, you can see a map of the game and where all the scenes are and how they're linked up, and you can see all these lovely silvery lines, all these wires linking everything up together. If I go to edit mode, you can now see this is the place where we're going to level link everything up, and you'll see this is my hub world here. It's got lots of doors in it. Now something I haven't mentioned, which is quite important, is to name your door. So if you go L1 and square in your door gadget at the very top, you'll be able to rename your doorway gadget to something specific so that you'll recognize which door is what, especially in a level where you have lots of different doors in it, like a hub. So with the door names, now I can see which door is which, and I can link them to my different scenes. So let's just delete all the wires going to this so we can start from a clean slate so you can see how this works. Right, so now I've separated everything up. I've got various different scenes. Now I've set this up with a hub world and a menu and the ability to link to each of these scenes individually. But if you were making a game that had a linear progression from scene to scene, you're going to wire it up slightly differently to how my game is normally done. So first of all, you need to wire from your opening scene to your second scene, there we go, and then second scene to the third scene to the fourth scene, and I think I've got a final scene at the bottom there, and just wire that one up. Sorry about that. There we go. So now that's my final scene, and then there's an exit there which will just end the game because it's got nowhere else to go. So there we are. That's how you do a linear game progression where you're going from scene to scene. However, this particular game actually has a hub and a menu, and you can choose the scenes that you want to play. So that's a slightly different wiring system. So let's just delete these wires Sometimes it's a bit difficult. You might have to move your bubbles about a bit in order to get at the wire. So now what we're going to do then is we're going to wire from our door to the entrance of our scene, like so. And then we're going to take the exit doors and wire them back into the entrance door of my hub. Now, unfortunately, they tend to cluster around together. I wish they didn't do that. It makes it very difficult to see what you're doing, but unfortunately, that is what it does. Just make sure you manage to get the right part, the entrance, and not an exit. So there you go. There's all our wires. It looks a little bit complicated, a bit like spaghetti, and there's no way of tidying that up, unfortunately. But there you are. You can see if you move the bubbles around, you get a slightly different effect. You can see the things a little bit clearer if you move them around. But if you've got a lot of levels linking into one, it does get a little bit messy and a bit confusing. So beware of that when you try. But there you go. We've got a whole game now that's got a hub, and we can look at the scenes, and when we've finished our game and it's exiting, it's going straight back to the menu. And then you would just save that. I'm not saving it, but you would save that, and then you would have your game. So here is my game and what it looks like. So here is our hub. See, I can choose, and I press a button, and that activates the doorway, which then links to my level. So there we go. So that's linked in to that level that was wired into the game. It's as simple as that. There's a nice plug for my game, by the way, if you fancy playing that. That's something I made in the beta. Right. Okay, so what else to say about the doorway gadget? It's probably a good idea to say how you use a doorway. People get confused. They think they actually have to have a physical door. You don't. You can activate this doorway using a wire, using a keyframe, using a timeline. There are lots of different ways that you can use a doorway. Use the power socket, just wire something to that power, and like that, and then it will activate the doorway. So you could do it with the button press, or if you're doing something like a music video and you want the when the music's finished, when the video's finished, for it to exit, you could put a doorway in your timeline where you've got your music, and when it gets to the part of the music at the end, and it activates the doorway. So in this case, at 5 seconds, it's going to activate that doorway. It will power that on. So you put any gadget in a timeline, it will power it on at that particular moment. So that's a good way of doing it. Unfortunately, now I don't know if they fixed it or not, but there was a problem with the game jams. If you had a doorway in a timeline like this, sometimes it would go to the next game in the feed without showing the player the voting screen for your game. I don't know if they fixed that or not, but that's something to be aware of. Like I say, I don't know if it's fixed. I'm hoping it's fixed, but there's no mention of it, so I don't know if that's still in place. So maybe avoid doing that if you've got a game jam entry. That's all I'm saying. You will notice there is a gizmo. I haven't mentioned this. The gizmo is actually a directional positional thing. So this is where your player is going to appear. So if you put that in a doorway, you stick that gizmo there, and that is the point at which the player is going to spawn, and the arrow shows you which direction they're going to face. So you put that in your doorway. It's good to have that ball area in the pelvis height. That means that they're not falling down or sunk into the ground or anything. That's about the right height for it. And then you can change the direction that they're facing as they come out the door. So that's what that's for. And that's about it, really. Nothing much more to say about the doorway gadget. Like I say, I am going to be redoing the tutorials. So I hope you bear with me while I do those. And I hope it's not too confusing for you. But otherwise, thank you for watching. And I'll catch you in your dreams.